Today we got to talk about Tom Herman is out and Steve Sarkisian is in at Texas, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, want to talk about just some college football news shakeup early this Saturday morning following the playoff semifinals. Tom Herman is reportedly out at the University of Texas, and Chip Brown at 247 has reported Steve Sarkisian is in. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of this and start with the news of Tom Herman being out after winning the Alamo Bowl, in which Bijan Robinson looked good. This was the final game, we think, for Sam Ehlinger, and perhaps Tom Herman had survived some heavy interest that Texas had in bringing Urban Meyer in. But according to reporting done by 247, including myself as well, look, man, Urban Meyer wasn't going to take that job. He's getting a lot of interest from NFL teams, particularly the Chargers in Los Angeles and the Jaguars in Jacksonville. We'll see how that goes. But here's the statement from the University of Texas at Austin. With our football season coming to a close, our Vice President and Athletics Director, Chris Del Conte, has evaluated the UT program's strengths and weaknesses and where the program is relative to our goals. While we have made measured progress during the past several years under Tom Herman's leadership, Chris has recommended to the university president, Jay Hartzell, that UT make a coaching change to get us on track to achieving our ambitious goals. President Hartzell and the chair of our Board of Regents, Kevin Eltife, concur with this recommendation and have approved the change. We thank Coach Herman for his service and dedication to our student athletes, our program, and our university. Tom Herman's buyout is $15 million. I believe there's another $10 million attached to that for his assistant coaches. We'll see how all that gets worked out. But now you get Steve Sarkisian in at a very interesting time as well. Now, there were lots of folks that thought that Steve Sarkisian would just wait for Nick Saban to decide what he's going to do in some years when he might decide to retire. But look, man, I think that this was a really good job for him to take. I think that Steve Sarkisian wanting to take this job says a lot about how attractive Texas is, and you've seen what he's been able to do with Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, and others at Alabama. Add to that, the man's putting up 48 points a game this year with Najee, with Devontae, and without Jalen for most of the season. If he can build that sort of success at Texas with the resources that they have, you become an immediate threat to Oklahoma. You become an immediate threat to win the Big 12 championship, and you become an immediate threat to win a national championship. Now, Bijan Robinson is a big part of that. Can you keep him in? That's very important. That's really what needs to be happening. You need to have that conversation right now, and you need to know what kind of quarterback you can get. I'm so interested to see how this goes for the playoff, too, because we've seen Nick Saban fire an offensive coordinator who had taken a job and didn't seem like he was fit to play, or fit to coach, and that's how Sarkisian got the job. Lane Kiffin took the FAU job. Lane Kiffin 100% called plays that they weren't necessarily practicing the week ahead to play Washington. He got fired in between the semifinal and the national championship game. Steve Sarkisian called a great game, used that game to get to Atlanta, came back to Alabama, and has basically been offensive coordinator since Brian Dable decided to go to the Buffalo Bills. Now it seems like he wants to get back into not just being a head coach, but a head coach at a really competitive place all of a sudden. Like, this had been the talk about Texas for years. You'll have resources, but they expect to win, and they expect to win right away and very, very quickly. Now, I also think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of staff he could put around him and whether or not he can pry some of those guys that have been loyal to Nick Saban away, because I say loyal like in air quotes, because you take jobs at Alabama to get jobs away from Alabama, because Saban is he's going to work you. You're going to get worked. It's not an environment that is really even conducive to every football coach, even the ones that claim to love ball, because it turns out Nick Saban is such a hell of a taskmaster. For Sarkisian to take this job and to take this job now, wow, that's also really interesting. And it also says what Texas is willing to do right now, because we all thought that Tom Herman was safe for 21. We thought he was safe to get up out of there or to get it one more year at this. And reacting to this in real time, man, I'm also just thinking about what kind of repercussions this might have for recruiting. Steve Sarkisian is a charismatic dude. I enjoy watching him perform his coaches' clinics, watching him talk about some of their run-pass option concepts and how they want to run the football, but you're going to give us one-on-one on the outside, we're going to take that. Watching him teach guys how to see coverage as wide receivers, as tailbacks, and, of course, as quarterbacks is really interesting. He's more than capable of putting up a bunch of points, and if he can lock up the state of Texas, you have something brewing, right? Because you look at the top 10 recruits in Texas, I believe 2 of them are signed and committed to Texas. One of those is Tavion Sanders, who is mossing people in a tremendously important, he goes to the end zone, stands up, plucks the ball out of the air. He looks like a defensive end. You have those sorts of athletes around the university. I can't wait to see what this means for Texas going forward, but I did want to get out here and talk about it a little bit. And of course, we will we will talk about this a lot next week. Let's see what happens. But I'm interested right now to see how Nick Saban takes this. If Steve Sarkisian is allowed to coach through the national championship, because they are the prohibitive favorite to win it in just over a week's time. Last thing that I would add in here is defensive coordinator is going to be really interesting here, because I don't think that Chris Ash is Steve Sarkisian's guy. Finding a good defensive coordinator that you can marry with the kind of offense that you want to run as Steve Sarkisian and at Texas is not an easy thing to do. Pete Golding was my favorite guy to get the job at Alabama after, it looked like that job was going to become available. And even he has struggled from time to time and had to really ratchet it down. He's a great teacher. He's a great motivator. I'm interested. I really am with you. There's so many names you could throw against the wall. There's so many places you could go. But I did not see this coming. And when it was reported, it made all the sense in the world. Shout out to UT for wanting to go get their guy and not hesitating to pull the trigger. All right, that's it for me. Doses.